I spent 20 years preparing a surprise for my wife. One conversation changed everything. I stood in the hallway with my keys still in my hand, coat half on, when I heard my wife say my name, casually, like she was discussing weather. Her voice was calm. That was the part that hurt first. I'd just come back inside, forgotten my phone on the kitchen counter. The house was supposed to be empty. Verena had said she was meeting a friend for coffee. But her car was still in the driveway, and I could hear her voice coming from the living room. On the phone, talking to someone. I should have called out, should have made noise, should have let her know I was there. But I didn't. I just stood there, keys dangling, coat sliding off my shoulder, listening. She said my name. Halden's been working late again, same as always. The tone was flat, matter of fact, not affectionate, not even irritated, just observational. Like she was describing a weather pattern. I froze. Something in her voice made my stomach tighten. She laughed softly and said, "Once it's final, I'll be fine. I've already done the math." The word math landed like a punch. She was talking about leaving me, already past the emotion, already past me. Final. That word echoed in my head. Once what's final? The laugh wasn't bitter, wasn't cruel, just light, easy, like she was talking about switching phone plans or changing grocery stores. "I've already done the math," she continued. "With the house, the accounts, the equity, I'll be more than comfortable. Better than comfortable, actually." My hand tightened around my keys. Metal bit into my palm. I could hear her shifting on the couch, the creak of leather, the rustle of papers. She had papers. She'd been planning this, calculating, preparing, and I'd had no idea. "No, I'm not worried," she said. "He's been consistent, predictable. Everything's documented. It'll be clean." Clean. Like our marriage was a transaction. Like 20 years could be divided up on a spreadsheet and closed out like a business deal. I pressed my palm against the wall to steady myself as she kept talking. No anger, no sadness, just planning. Like our marriage was a project she'd already closed. The wall was cool under my hand, solid, real. Everything else felt like it was tilting. Verena kept talking. I couldn't hear everything, just fragments. Phrases that cut through the ringing in my ears. The attorney said 6 months, maybe less. He won't fight it. He never fights. I've already looked at condos downtown. She'd looked at condos, had an attorney, had a timeline, had done the math. And she was right about one thing. I never fought, never raised my voice, never made scenes. I'd always believed that made me a good husband. Steady, reliable, safe. But standing there, listening to her plan my exit from her life with the same tone she used to plan grocery lists, I realized she'd mistaken patience for weakness, consistency for complacency, and now she was counting money that didn't exist. At least, not in the way she thought. My name is Halden Cross, and the night I overheard my wife planning her exit was the exact moment I realized love isn't always betrayed by cheating. Sometimes it's betrayed by preparation. I stood in that hallway for another 5 minutes, listening, learning, understanding. Verena wrapped up her call, said goodbye to whoever was on the other end, probably her attorney, maybe a friend. Didn't matter. I heard her footsteps, moving toward the kitchen. I slipped out the front door, quiet, careful, got in my car, drove around the block, came back 10 minutes later, pulled into the driveway like I was just getting home, walked in with my keys and my phone and my coat. Called out her name. She appeared from the living room. Smiled, kissed my cheek, asked how my day was. I told her it was fine, and I realized this wasn't an affair. This was worse. Because affairs are messy, emotional, impulsive. This was calculated, strategic, clean, and I was the project being closed out. For years I believed stability was love, showing up, paying bills, staying when things got quiet instead of dramatic. I wasn't romantic in the traditional sense, didn't buy flowers every week, didn't plan surprise getaways, didn't write love letters or make grand gestures. I showed love through consistency, through being there, through making sure the bills were paid and the house was maintained and Verena never had to worry about money. I worked, came home, had dinner, watched TV, went to bed. Repeat. For 20 years. Some people might call that boring. Verena probably did, but I called it stable, reliable, safe. I thought that mattered, thought it was enough. Thought showing up every single day, even when it wasn't exciting, was the truest form of love. I was wrong. Or maybe I was right, and it just wasn't the kind of love Verena wanted. Either way, I'd spent 2 decades building a life I thought we both valued. Turns out she'd spent at least some of that time planning her exit. I never surprised her with grand gestures. I believed consistency mattered more than spectacle. Verena used to hint. Early in our marriage, she'd mention how her friend's husband surprised her with a trip to Paris, how another friend got jewelry for no reason, how romance was about spontaneity. I'd nod, agree, then do nothing, because I didn't believe in grand gestures, didn't believe in spending money we were trying to save on trips or jewelry or expensive dinners. I believed in the quiet gestures, the daily ones, making coffee before she woke up, fixing things before she asked, taking care of problems before they became her problems. I thought that was romance, thought that was love. Thought consistency, showing up, day after day, year after year, was more meaningful than any surprise. And maybe it should have been. Maybe in a different marriage with a different person, it would have been. But with Verena, it wasn't. With Verena, consistency became invisible, expected, taken for granted, until she stopped seeing it as love and started seeing it as nothing. What she didn't know, what no one knew, was that every month I was quietly building something for her, for us, for the future I thought we'd have together. 20 years ago, I opened an account, separate from our joint accounts, separate from everything visible. Every month I deposited money, not much at first, just whatever I could spare. 100 here, 200 there. As my income grew, the deposits grew. I invested conservatively, index funds, bonds, safe, steady growth. Nothing flashy, nothing risky, just patient, consistent accumulation. I told myself it was for retirement, for a down payment on a vacation home someday, for Verena's dream trip to Italy she'd mentioned once, years ago, for something. I didn't know exactly what. Just knew I wanted to surprise her, wanted to show her that all those years of consistency, all those quiet days, were building towards something beautiful, something she'd never expected. A future where money wasn't a worry, where she could retire early if she wanted, where we could travel and relax and enjoy the life we'd built. I never told her, wanted it to be a surprise. An account? Long-term, conservative, patient, something meant to say, I thought about you even when you weren't watching. The account had a name, just a number really, but in my head I called it Verena's future. Dramatic, maybe, but true. Every deposit felt like a promise, like proof that even when things got quiet, even when we fell into routine, even when romance looked like making coffee and fixing leaks instead of Paris and jewelry, I was thinking about her, planning for her, building for her. The balance grew slowly, then faster. Compound interest, market gains, consistent contributions. By year 10, it was substantial. By year 15, it was significant. By year 20, it was life-changing. Enough to retire on. Enough to live comfortably for decades. Enough to prove that quiet love could build something grand. I'd planned to tell her on our 25th anniversary. Planned to sit her down and show her statements. Show her what consistency had built. Show her that I'd been surprising her all along. Just slowly. Patiently. The way I did everything. But I never got the chance. 20 years of restraint. 20 years of saying later to myself so she could someday say, finally. I'd sacrificed for that account. Not dramatically, just quietly. Turned down promotions that required relocation because Verena loved our house. Skipped expensive hobbies because the money could go toward her future. Drove old cars, wore old clothes, ate leftovers, saved, invested, built. All for a moment I thought would be worth it. A moment where I could show Verena that patience wasn't boring, that consistency wasn't complacency, that quiet love could be just as powerful as grand gestures. I imagined her face, imagined the surprise, the tears, the gratitude, the realization that all those years I was working late and skipping vacations and living modestly, I was building something for us. For her. I thought it would redeem me, prove me, validate 20 years of showing love the only way I knew how. But standing in that hallway listening to her plan her exit, I realized she'd never know, because she was leaving before the surprise and taking what she thought was hers on the way out. After that night, I replayed her words over and over, the tone, the confidence, the certainty. I couldn't sleep, just lay there, staring at the ceiling, Verena next to me, breathing steady, peaceful. Unaware I knew, her words echoed, once it's final, I'll be fine. I've already done the math. With the house, the accounts, the equity, I'll be more than comfortable. He won't fight it. He never fights. She was so sure, so confident, so certain I'd just let her walk away with half of everything. And why wouldn't she be? I never fought, never argued, never pushed back. 20 years of being agreeable, accommodating, easy. She'd learned I was predictable, learned she could plan around me, learned I wouldn't resist. And she was right. I wouldn't resist. Wouldn't fight, wouldn't make it messy. But I also wouldn't make it easy, not anymore. Because the math she'd done, it was wrong, and I was the only one who knew. She wasn't angry at me, she was finished with me. That realization hit me somewhere around 3 a.m. I'd been trying to figure out what I'd done wrong, what fight we'd had, what moment broke us. But there wasn't one. Verena wasn't leaving because I'd hurt her, or betrayed her, or failed her in some dramatic way. She was leaving because she was done. Done with quiet, done with routine, done with consistency, done with me. There was no anger in her voice when she talked about leaving, no bitterness, no pain, just practicality. Like she'd outgrown me. Like our marriage was a phase she'd moved past, and now she was ready for the next chapter, one that didn't include me. I almost admired the coldness of it, the efficiency, no drama, no mess, just a clean exit. Math, attorneys, timelines. She'd turned leaving into a project, and she was executing it perfectly, or so she thought. At breakfast the next morning she smiled like always. Asked if I wanted eggs. I watched her hands, steady, unshaken. She stood at the stove, spatula in hand, hair pulled back in a ponytail, wearing my old college sweatshirt, looking exactly like she always looked, comfortable, familiar, safe. Eggs, she asked again. I nodded. Sure. She cracked 2 into the pan, added butter, salt, pepper, moved with the same easy rhythm she always had. No guilt, no hesitation. No sign that she'd spent yesterday planning my removal from her life. Her hands were steady, completely steady. Not a tremor, not a shake, not a single indication that she was living a double life. And I realized she'd been doing this for a while, months, maybe years. Living normally, smiling, making eggs, sleeping next to me, all while planning, calculating, preparing. She'd become an expert at pretending. Or maybe she wasn't pretending. Maybe this was just normal to her now. Maybe planning to leave while making breakfast was just another form of multitasking. I realized then, this wasn't a decision she was making. It was a decision she'd already lived with. Verena had already left me, emotionally, mentally. She just hadn't left physically yet. She was waiting for the right time, the right moment, the right financial arrangement. But the marriage? That was already over. Had been for a while. I just hadn't noticed. Or maybe I had noticed and ignored it. The distance, the lack of physical intimacy, the way she stopped asking about my day, the way conversations became transactional, logistics, schedules, bills, nothing deeper. I'd told myself we were just in a quiet phase, that long marriages went through cycles, that we'd come back to each other eventually. But we weren't in a quiet phase. We were in an ending. She'd just decided to manage it on her timeline, not mine. And I'd been so focused on building the future that I'd missed the present falling apart, missed the signs, the warnings, the slow, steady withdrawal. By the time I noticed, she was already gone. That was when I stopped thinking about why she was leaving and started thinking about what she believed she was entitled to. The why didn't matter anymore. She was done. Fine. I couldn't control that, couldn't fix it, couldn't change her mind. But I could control what happened next, could control what she walked away with, could control the math. Because the math she'd done was based on assumptions. Assumptions about our assets, our accounts, our equity, assumptions that were partially wrong. The house was joint, the visible accounts were joint. She'd get half of those, standard, expected, fair. But the account, the surprise, the 20 years of quiet deposits and patient investing, that wasn't joint, that was separate, legally separate, completely separate. And Verena didn't know it existed, which meant her math, her comfortable, confident math was off, way off, and I was the only one who could correct it. The question was, should I? I didn't accuse her, didn't ask questions, didn't give her the satisfaction of reaction. The next few days were normal, painfully normal. We went through our routines. Verena made breakfast, I went to work, we had dinner, watched TV, went to bed. She kissed my cheek, said goodnight, rolled over, fell asleep. I lay awake, thinking, planning, processing. But I didn't confront her, didn't ask if she was planning to leave, didn't mention what I'd overheard, because confronting her would give her time to adjust, Time to prepare. Time to hire a better attorney. Time to dig deeper into our finances. Time to find the account. And I didn't want her to find it. Not yet. Not until I decided what to do with it. So I stayed quiet, acted normal, smiled when she smiled, nodded when she talked, played the predictable husband she expected, the one who never fought, never questioned, never pushed back, the one she'd already dismissed. And while I played that role, I started making calls. Instead, I opened old files, account statements, legal documents I hadn't looked at in years. I took a sick day, stayed home while Verena went to work, went to my office, pulled out the filing cabinet, found the folder labeled Personal Investments. Inside were statements. 20 years of statements, the account I'd never told her about. I read through them, verified the structure, confirmed the ownership, individual account, my name only, opened before marriage, never commingled with joint assets, contributions made from my income, yes, but structured legally as separate property. I'd set it up that way intentionally, not to hide it from Verena, just to keep it separate, clean. So when I surprised her, it would feel like a gift. Something I'd built for her. Not something she was entitled to. Something I was choosing to share. Ironic now. Because that legal separation, that structure I'd created to make the surprise feel more meaningful was now the only thing protecting it. Protecting it from her, from the math she'd done, from the comfortable future she'd planned. Without me. I met Miles Rourke quietly, asking questions that sounded hypothetical but weren't. Miles was my financial advisor. Had been for 15 years. He knew about the account, had helped me manage it, grow it, optimize it. I called him, said I needed a meeting. Private, urgent. We met at a coffee shop across town. Away from my office, away from anywhere Verena might see. Hypothetically, I said, if I were getting divorced, how would this account be treated? Miles didn't flinch, didn't ask why. Just pulled out his laptop. Reviewed the account structure, the ownership, the timeline. Hypothetically, he said, this would be considered separate property, opened before marriage, never commingled, funded from your income, yes, but structured independently. In most states, a spouse would have no claim. Most states, you'd need to confirm with an attorney, but based on structure, it's yours, completely. I nodded, felt something shift. The account was mine. Legally, fully. Verena had no claim, no right, no entitlement. The math she'd done, wrong. The comfortable future she'd planned, a fantasy. And I was the only one who knew. Then Etta Sloan confirmed something crucial. The future she was counting on was never legally hers. Etta was an attorney, divorce specialist. Miles recommended her. I called, made an appointment, showed her the account statements, explained the structure, asked the same question. If I were getting divorced, what happens to this? Etta reviewed everything, took her time, asked questions, verified dates, ownership, contributions. Then she looked up. This is separate property. Your spouse has no legal claim. Even though I'm married? Even though the account was established before marriage, never jointly titled, never commingled with marital assets, in the eyes of the law, it's yours. What if she argues I used marital income to fund it? You did, but it was your income, deposited into an individual account. That's allowed. As long as you didn't deplete marital assets to fund it, which you didn't, based on what you've shown me, she has no claim. I sat back, exhaled. For the first time since overhearing that conversation, my hand stopped shaking. Because I had a choice now, a real choice. Let her leave, let her take half of what she knew about, but keep the surprise. Keep the 20 years, keep the future I'd built. Not out of spite, just out of protection. For the first time since overhearing that conversation, my hand stopped shaking. I thanked Etta, paid the consultation fee, walked to my car, sat in the driver's seat, and finally felt steady. The past week had been chaos, internal chaos, spiraling thoughts, sleepless nights, constant replaying of Verena's words, constant questioning of everything. But now I had clarity. Verena was leaving. Fine, I couldn't stop that, didn't want to. If she was done, she was done. Forcing someone to stay who didn't want to be there wasn't love. It was prison. For both of us. But she was also counting on a future that didn't exist, counting on assets that weren't hers, counting on my predictability to make her exit comfortable. And I could give her that, could be predictable, could let her walk away comfortable, could make it easy. Or I could protect what I'd built. Not out of anger, not out of revenge, just out of principle. Out of the simple truth that she wasn't entitled to something she didn't know existed. Something I'd built as a gift she'd rejected before receiving. My hands were steady, my mind was clear, and I knew exactly what I needed to do. I adjusted what I was allowed to adjust, changed nothing out of anger, only out of clarity. I didn't touch the account, didn't withdraw funds, didn't hide anything, just secured it. Made sure the structure was documented. Made sure the ownership was clear. Made sure if Farina filed for divorce and tried to claim it, I had proof it was separate property. I also adjusted beneficiaries, updated my will, made sure if something happened to me, the account wouldn't default to her. Not out of spite, just out of honesty, because she'd made her choice. And I was making mine. I met with Etta again, had her draft a postnuptial agreement, just in case, just to have options, to have documentation, to have clarity. I didn't file anything. Didn't force Farina to sign anything, just prepared. Just made sure when she finally made her move, I was ready, because she'd been preparing for months, maybe years. And I'd been blindsided, but I wouldn't stay that way. I'd catch up, get ahead. And when she finally sat me down for the talk, I'd already be done. I finalized my decisions days before she made hers. Not to win, but to protect what was built in good faith. Everything was in order, documents filed, accounts secured, attorneys consulted. I'd done everything I could legally do to protect the account, to protect the 20 years, to protect the future I'd built. Not to hurt Farina, not to punish her, just to protect what was mine, what I'd earned, what I'd sacrificed for. Because if she wanted to leave, fine, but she'd leave with what she was legally entitled to, not what she assumed she'd get. Not the comfortable future she'd calculated based on incomplete information. Just the house, the joint accounts, the standard division of marital assets, half of what we'd built together, not half of what I'd built alone. And I felt okay about that. Not happy, not vindicated, just okay. Because I'd spent 20 years being generous, being patient, being selfless, building something for someone who didn't want it. And now I was just being fair. Fair to myself, fair to the truth. Fair to the reality Verena had created when she decided to leave without telling me. When she finally sat me down and said, "We need to talk," I already knew every word she would use. It was a Saturday morning. Verena made coffee, asked me to sit. Her face was serious, calm, prepared. "Halden," she started, "we need to talk." I nodded, sipped my coffee, waited. She'd rehearsed this, I could tell. The way she paused, the way she folded her hands, the way she looked at me like I was a client, not a husband. "I've been thinking about us, about our marriage, about where we are." She paused, waited for me to react. I didn't, just waited. "I think we've grown apart. I think we want different things. I think we should separate." There it was, the word. Separate. Not divorce, not yet, just separate. Testing the waters, seeing how I'd react. I set my coffee down. "Okay," she blinked. "Okay? Yeah, if that's what you want. You're not gonna fight? Would it change anything?" She hesitated. "No." "Then no, I'm not gonna fight." She looked surprised, maybe disappointed, like she'd expected resistance, drama, emotion. But I gave her nothing, just calm acceptance, because I'd already processed this, already grieved, already moved on. She expected resistance, bargaining, maybe guilt. Instead, she got calm agreement. Verena sat back, confused. "You're really okay with this?" I didn't say I'm okay with it. I said I'm not going to fight it. "What's the difference?" "The difference is I understand. You're done. You want out. Fighting won't change that. It'll just make it messy, and I don't want messy." "So, what? We just split everything and move on?" "That's usually how it works." She nodded, relieved. "I've already talked to an attorney, looked at the finances. With the house and the accounts, we should both be comfortable." There it was. The math, the comfortable future. "You think so?" I asked. "I know so," she said confidently. "We've built a good life, saved well, invested, we'll both be fine." I nodded, didn't correct her, didn't mention the account, didn't explain that her math was wrong, just let her believe what she wanted to believe. Because she'd find out soon enough. When attorneys started disclosure, when assets were listed, when she realized half of everything was less than she thought. Not because I'd hidden anything, just because she'd never known everything to begin with. When she asked about the future, the one she assumed waited for her, I told her the truth. There had been a surprise once. We were signing papers, Verena's attorney, my attorney. Division of assets outlined, house, joint accounts, retirement funds, standard stuff. Then Verina's attorney asked, "Are there any other assets we should be aware of?" I looked at Verina. She looked confident, certain, like she knew everything. "Yes," I said. Her face shifted. Confusion. Then concern. "What?" "There's an account, separate property, established before marriage, never commingled." Her attorney perked up. "What kind of account?" "Investment account. Individual ownership." "How much?" I told them. The room went silent. Verina stared. "What? That's how?" 20 years, I said. Consistent deposits, conservative investing, compound interest. "And you never told me?" "I was going to, on our 25th anniversary. It was supposed to be a surprise." She looked devastated. Not because she was losing the money, she knew she had no claim, but because she was losing the future she'd counted on, the comfortable exit, the financial security. It was for me? For us. For you, for the future I thought we'd have. Her voice cracked. "And now?" "Now it's just mine." Silence. Then her attorney moved on, because legally there was nothing to argue. It was separate property. Always had been. Verina just hadn't known. I didn't take anything from her. I just stopped giving something she never deserved and walked away knowing patience doesn't make you weak. It makes you prepared. The divorce was final 6 months later. Clean, efficient, just like Verina wanted. She got the house, half the joint accounts, her retirement. I got my half, the account, my freedom. We both walked away fine, but not equally fine. Verina got what she was entitled to, enough to live on. Enough to be okay. But not the comfortable future she'd planned. Not the early retirement. Not the financial security she'd calculated. I got the account. The surprise. The 20 years of patience and sacrifice and quiet love that she'd never valued. And I didn't feel victorious. Didn't feel like I'd won. Just felt clear. I'd spent 20 years building something for someone who didn't want it. And when she tried to take it anyway, not out of love, but out of entitlement, I protected it. Not out of anger, just out of truth. The truth that patience isn't weakness, consistency isn't failure, and quiet love, even when unreturned, still builds something real, something worth protecting. And I walked away knowing that.